Hey, I'm Nicole. Welcome back to my channel, where today I'm taking on a job that most sewists hate, and that is taking up trousers for a friend. My mate Kerry is due round shortly. She messaged me about a week ago and asked if I would take up some trousers for her. During my time on Instagram, I followed a lot of fellow sewists, and I would always feel really amused whenever people would ask, what are your sewing pet peeves, or tell me your most unpopular opinions about sewing. Almost always in the top three would be sewists whinging and complaining about friends asking them to take up their trousers. And I get it. I used to be one of those people. I remember years ago when a friend of mine had asked me to take up a pair of her work trousers for her. I didn't want to do it, but I said yes because I didn't know how to say no. I just begrudged the entire job, and then at the end just decided I never want to do that again. And for a long time after that, I was left with the impression that I hated doing alterations and I would never ever in a million years want to do it as a living. But fast forward years later, I was really strapped for income and I ended up getting into clothing alterations and repairs for a living. And I tell you, that experience completely reframed the way I look at jobs like this. During my time doing clothing alterations professionally, I saw the entire range from very simple alterations to very complicated alterations. And I will tell you, on that spectrum, shortening trousers is definitely on the easy end. It's a job that once you get the hang of it, it's very easy to do. It's kind of easy money, really. So in this video, I thought I would share with you the whole process of doing a shortening on a pair of trousers for someone, whether it's a friend or whether it's a client, from the fitting aspect, how to pin up the trouser and how to determine with the friend or client how much needs taking off. And then I will walk you through the whole alteration process. And hopefully by the end of the video, you will feel a lot less daunted, maybe a lot less reluctant, maybe a lot less resentful about taking up trousers for people, because it is a very popular alteration. And even if you don't end up doing it for other people, it's quite handy to know how to do it for yourself. So I'm here with my mate Kerry, who I'm shortening trousers for.
My tiny legs.
Every sewist's most dreaded job ever.
Yeah.
So I'm going to show you the process of how to fit a trouser on somebody when you're shortening to work out how much you need to take it up by. For that, you're just going to need a measuring tape and some pins, because we're going to be pinning the trouser up. You're going to get your client or your friend to put the trousers on. I also recommend you have them wear the shoes that they think they're going to most likely wear with the trouser, because that will make a difference. Obviously, if you're wearing flat sandals, it's going to hang differently than if you're wearing trainers or heels or whatever. So go ahead and pop your trainers on. I'm going to get you to look in the mirror, and I'm going to pin the trouser up on you. So you're going to start by just folding the trouser up. You can always finesse it, but initially you just want to pin it up so that it's hanging in a place that looks about right. What you can do is pin one side. I'm just going to measure how much that is. In this case, it's 2 inches. So then I'm just going to go around with my measuring tape and just pin up 2 inches. I usually just do the outside. Oh my, Maxie. I usually just pin just the outside side seam, pin one in the front. I'm just going to pin the inseam as well. So again, I'm just going to take my measuring tape, just measure 2 inches there, pin that up, and then one at the back. So again, just measure 2 inches, pin that up. Now I shall consult with my client and see how she feels about how that's hanging.
Yep, that's perfect.
Yeah?
Not dragging on the floor. Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, happy with that?
Yep.
Okay, so we know we're going to shorten this one by 2 inches. So I usually just leave the pins in there, and then I will just shorten the other leg based on what we've decided on this one. Unless you think your client has, or unless they know they have legs that are 2 different lengths, then generally I would just pin one and then use the same measurement to do the other one. But there are some cases where if somebody's experience is that they have mismatched legs or whatever, then you might have to pin each side individually in case you need to take different amounts from each one. But I'm going to assume that you never have that problem with trousers.
Just tiny little legs. I have no idea.
Or care enough.
Don't care. Don't care.
All right, so let's get you in the other pair. Let's get into the second trouser that we are doing. So fold up first. Just kind of see how that's hanging. Now with a wider leg trouser, you can generally afford to have it sort of just sitting on top of here. With a narrower trouser, I find that often if you make it too long, it'll start bunching up at the front. So I'm just going to pin up on one side first, measure. So that is 2 3/4 inches. So again, I'm just going to go around on this side, pin up 2 3/4 inches on the front. And then on the inseam. Okay, how do you feel about that?
Yeah. Yeah. That's exactly where I wanted them to be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So at this stage, you might need to make adjustments. If the client feels like it's too short or too long, then obviously you can just unpin, either let it down by another half an inch or quarter of an inch, or put it up by another amount until we're happy with it. There might be some instances as well where you might want to take a bit more off the front versus the back. It just really depends on how it looks when it's fitted. You can always make those little adjustments based on how the person wants the trouser to hang. But this is a nice straightforward one. We've just got the same distance all the way around. And yeah, I think it's hanging nice. It's looking good. So that's it. That's all that's really involved in the fitting aspect of it. Next, we will get it to the cutting table and we will go through the actual alteration. Let's now get into the first trouser alteration, which is shortening this trouser by 2 inches. The first thing we need to do is just have a look at the hem construction of the trouser currently. What we have is a very deep hem, which is double turned and then just top stitched. Generally, we will replicate the same finish on the hem as was on the original trouser. For a double turn hem, what I want to establish is how deep the hem is. And on this particular trouser, it is 1 1/8 of an inch. Depending on how much you need taking off the trouser, there are instances when you can get away with not having to unpick the original hem. But on this particular trouser, we need to unpick the existing hem in order to get enough length on it to fold it back to the length that we need. So the first thing I'm going to do is unpick all of the stitching that is currently holding the hem here. There are obviously various ways you can unpick a lock stitch, which is what this is, which is the standard stitch that most sewing machines will do. What I might do with something like this is I will be on one side, I will unpick a few stitches along, and then I will just pull that loose thread out. What that will do on the other side is give you a little bit of a tail, and then again I will just unpick a few stitches down and then pull that. The alternative to this is to go along on one side and just unpick every few stitches, and then on the other side you should be able to just pull that thread through, but that leaves so many little tails of thread in the fabric. I don't particularly like that because then you've got to spend a bit of time unpicking all of those little threads anyway, so I prefer this method to that one. I've got both the trouser legs unpicked now, so what I can measure now is how deep the turn on the inside is, and it's about the same, so we'll just double turn it 1 1/8 of an inch twice. So let's take this to the ironing board now, and we will just pull the trouser all the way out and we will press it all flat. Here I've got the trouser pressed flat, and now I'm going to make my markings to tell me where to cut it to size. Now I would normally make the markings on the wrong side, but because it's much easier for me to see where the original bottom hem was, I'm going to make the markings on the right side. It's all going to get hidden anyway in the hem. I am using a heat erasable pen in any case, so when I come to do the final press, the markings will disappear. What I like to do with this is I'll usually put my measuring tape. So say I want to remove 2 inches, I will put the 2-inch line on the original bottom hem, so that this here, where the measuring tape ends, is where we want the finished length to be. I will then add back my hem allowances. So from here, I will need to add 1 1/8 inch for the first turn, and then another 1 1/8 inch for the second turn, which gives me 2 1/4 inches. So I really just need to cut 1/4 of an inch below the original bottom hem line. So I'm just going to go around. I'm just going to put my 2-inch mark on the measuring tape along this white line here, which was the bottom hem, and I'm just going to mark 1/4 of an inch below that line. I'm just going to go all the way around the trouser leg doing that on each one, and then we will cut along that line. Now that we have the trouser legs cut to size, what we need to do now is press the hem allowance up in preparation for sewing the new hem. Now, what we're not going to do is press 1/8 of an inch and then press again, because by the time we get to the second fold, there's much more chance for error. Instead, we're going to make the first press at the finished hemline, and that for us is 2 1/4 inches. So we're going to measure 2 1/4 inches from that cut line, and then we're going to press. Then we're going to go around to the next bit. Again, measure 2 1/4 inches from the cut line and press. So we will go ahead and do that all the way around the trouser on both legs. Now that we've done that first press, we're going to unfurl that, and then we're going to make the second press by just folding that hem inside like that, just so the raw edge hits the fold line that we just made, and then we're going to press that in place. After that pressing, I realized I made a bit of a boo-boo because I'm looking at this and I'm going, that does not look as deep as the original hem. And then when I look back at the video, I realized that it wasn't 1 1/8 of an inch. It was an eighth longer than 1.5 inches. So in fact, it was 1 5/8 of an inch. That was a bit of a boo-boo, but the good thing is we can rectify that. All I would need to do is adjust how much I did that first turn by. So in order to get to 1 5/8 of an inch of the finished hem, I will need to make the first press 5/8 of an inch on the first turn. To correct that, we don't have to press this first line flat because that is still our finished length of trouser. We just need to press flat the second forward line that we did. So we've unpressed that line there. So now we will just fold that up 5/8 of an inch, and that will get us back to the hem allowance that we need at the end. Okay, that's looking more like it. We are now in the final stages of preparing to sew the hem. If you like, you can just go ahead and pin that hem up, which just helps you to keep all the bits in place when you take it to the machine. Now I'm just going to turn the trouser to the right side because we are going to sew that way up on the machine, and we are just going to run our stitching just inside of that forward line there. We've got the hem stitched up now, so let's just give it one final press. And with that, our first trouser shortening alteration is complete. That is what we are looking like from the right side of the trouser, and that's what we are looking like on the wrong side of the trouser. Let's now start in on our second alteration job for today, which is shortening this pair of joggers. First thing we need to do is measure how much we need to shorten it by, and that is 2 3/4 inches. The hem allowance on this one is 1 inch, and the particular hem finish that we have here is called a cover stitch, which just looks like 2 parallel rows of stitching on the right side, and on the wrong side it just looks a bit like an overlock. That requires a special cover stitch machine, which I don't have. So I'm going to do a cheat version, which is overlocking the raw edge first, and then doing a twin needle sewing on the right side. So the first thing we need to do is trim the trouser leg down to size. Let's go ahead and unpin this, and then we will make our markings and then make our cut. Because we are shortening it by 2 3/4 inches, again, I'm going to put my measuring tape on the bottom here at 2 3/4 inches, and then I'm going to add back my 1 inch hem allowance from the top. That looks quite generous actually. I don't know if it's a full inch, is it? No, it's not quite an inch. It's actually 3/4 of an inch. Not very good with my measurements today. Right, so I am going to be adding back my 3/4 of an inch seam allowance. This time I'm going to use my chalk pencil to make the markings rather than a friction pen, just because the fabric is a little bit dark. So I'm just going to go all the way around and make the markings for my cut line. I have made my markings all the way around, so now let's go ahead and make the cut. Now that we've got the trouser legs cut down to size, what we're going to do next is just overlock all the way around the raw edge at the bottom. We are just getting ready to do our overlocking. I thought I would just show you that I haven't got 4 spools of green thread to do the overlocking. So to supplement, I just wound 2 bobbins in the green thread. So we've got 2 bobbin threads feeding into the needles of the overlocker, and then we've got the 2 spools of thread feeding into the upper and lower loopers. So let's just go ahead now and overlock around the raw edges at the bottom of the joggers. We are now getting ready for the final stage of this alteration, which is to do our twin needle sewing on the hem. I'm going to replace my needle with this one, which is a 3mm twin ballpoint, because I was just measuring that against the original hem and it looks about right. I think the 4mm might be a little bit too wide. So I'm just going to go ahead and install this needle on my machine. I have got 2 spools of thread at the top, and I'm going to feed one into the left needle and one into the right needle. I've got the hem pressed up to our finished hem allowance. We are going to sew it with the right side up, but I've just got the wrong side up for now because I want to work out where to align this edge on my plate so that I know that the needles are hitting where I want it to hit. I want to aim to have the 2 needles hitting right inside the overlocking. So I'm going to align my edge here just inside of that 2cm mark. So let's go ahead and turn that over. I'm going to line that edge just inside the 2cm mark there. And then we will just start sewing. And there we have it. Our alteration on the second pair of trousers is done. That is what we are looking like from the right side. And that's what we are looking like from the wrong side. Just to compare that with the original hem that we'd cut off. That's what it looked like before. And that's what it looks like now. Well, that's it. Our job here is done. I'm now going to message my maid Kerry and let her know that her trousers are ready for collection and to never darken my doorstep again. Just kidding. I hope that you got something useful out of this video and it makes you feel slightly less full of hate the next time a friend comes and asks you to take up some trousers. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the next video.